Hello, in this video we are going to learn how to set up pricing using the advanced model. I have created two customizers here in our admin dashboard, and the advanced pricing only is applied to the advanced model. So we just click on that one. I've just given the name of advanced model demo. So to go to the pricing, we just go to required options and pricing. In here, I've already created two different pricing rules. Now, these pricing rules, you create once, and then you can apply to one or many different fonts. So in this demo, I've got two. To create any more new pricing rules, you go to just click here, add advanced pricing, and then you're given this form. So in the price settings, the label is just something that you can arbitrarily give because it's not shown to the customer. So you can give it whatever you like, just for easy reference. I'm just going to call this demo pricing for now, and below that is the letter pricing method. Now, this will determine how, as the name suggests, the letters are priced on your signs. So we have two options. One is the fixed cost per letter, which gives it a, you can define a arbitrary price, e.g. $5 per letter, $10 per letter. Or then the other option is the letter material cost, which is more of a dynamic kind of pricing arrangement that allows you to price the letters in a way that it will take an individual letter, it will stretch it out, it will measure the length, and then you give the price per centimeter of that length. I'll explain much more in detail here, but for now we're just going to give a quick overview of everything. So in this area here is where we see our price formula. And when we're starting off, we just have one size range. Now, I'll explain in much more detail how that actual size ranges work in our advanced pricing. But let's just expand this just to see the values that you can control. So you can start off with the shipping price. So that is, a dynamic price that's based on the final dimensions of the sign. We then have the, so this is where the letter pricing method determines what this value is shown here. So just to demonstrate, right now we're doing the price per letter because that's the fixed cost per letter method. Now, if I change that to letter material cost, you'll see that you see here that they have the letter material cost. So this value or input, this input will change based on the letter pricing method that you've defined up here. So let's go back to the fixed cost per letter just to keep going forward. And then you have the start price. So this is something where you could as the name suggests, this is where you would say hey, I want my signs to start at a minimum of $100, and that's kind of where you could use this input. So how do we apply this all together? Let's go through one by one, but for the start, let's talk about size ranges. So in a advanced pricing formula, what we kind of do here is we have size ranges. Now, size ranges, we'll bring up this kind of instruction manual just to kind of clearly illustrate, but I'll just bring this up, this image here, which is a reference to in that document. So what we're kind of talking about here is, let's say we've got three different size ranges. And I'll show you how to create that just later on. But in so in this size range, the range limit is, and we're exaggerating right here because some can be the size ranges can be much smaller than what is shown here, probably even 25 centimeter steps. But each one, like we've got size range 1, 2, and 3, each is 200 centimeters in difference, e.g. 200 centimeters, 400 centimeters, 600 centimeters. And then the sign dimensions, and what that means is when a customer creates a sign, basically the overall sign size, right? So in this case, in this example, we've got 400 centimeter wide by 200 centimeters high. So in this scenario, what would occur we've got 3 size ranges, and because of the sign is 430 centimeters wide, what occurs is we end up in size range 3. So what that means is whenever the sign fits into the size range, then those values that you see here, these pricing values, will be applied. So another example will be on this one right here. We've got this image. So in this example, what we've occurred is the sign size, the height is much more greater than the width in this scenario, right? So this is why we have size ranges, is what we're defining is the maximum height, the maximum width, and the maximum height. And so as you can see in this example, what occurs here is the pricing values for size range 2, because it's greater than the size range 1, would apply because the height is greater than the width, and therefore this size range would be used. So to kind of explain that, so now you can add additional size ranges. So you're starting off from, we're trying to explain it here, start at 0, continue to infinity, because these size ranges, as I start, like, if you just have 1, it's going to continue on, into infinity in that sense. So we can add an additional one to start setting actual, like, proper ranges here. So I add that one. Now, getting a couple of errors, just that, like, you can't save the form until we complete this. So as the size range set starts at 0, ends at 0, we'll change that for the sake of demonstration in this video. Let's just make it 50. So 50 centimeters, you're defining always the centimeters. So it starts, the size range 1 will now start at 0 and end at 50 centimeters. The second size range we have at 0 here, and what occurs is an error where this value must be greater than the previous max size range, because you want them to be in steps, like in these example images, right? Each size range should precede the next in a greater dimensional kind of range. So we can do another step here. We'll do it for the sake of demonstration. We'll go 75. So we're doing a 25 centimeter step. Okay. So what we've got there, now we've got 2 size ranges. All right. At the moment though, for each of these, the values are 0 for everything. So what we can start doing is we can, let's just start with the most, the simplest option is a start price of $100. So that means the sign is going to start at $100 now. All right, so that would be it. I'm not going to add one here because I'm going to show you just quickly how it works, but we'll save the form. Okay, so we have now created this demo pricing rule set. Now, what we can do is we can actually assign it to a font, because currently it's not assigned to any fonts. So we've just created the pricing rule set, but we haven't actually applied it yet to anything, to any fonts. So this is, you go back to the fonts, and this is where you get to apply the actual pricing rule to the font. You can see here that the fonts that we've created, and then the pricing, and that's the label of each pricing rule. So we'll apply it to the test font currently. We just go click on edit to the font that we want to edit. And in the pricing rules, we'll change it to demo pricing, the one we've just created. So we'll just save that. Great. Now, what we can do is we can literally preview this. And we can see kind of like how the pricing is set up. So at the moment, as soon as we start typing, we will see just to give it a T, and it starts at 100. Cool. So if I add more letters, what's going to happen is the price is not going to change. And that's because we've only set the start price. So this is going to be interesting. I think I set it at 75. So if I were to scale past, so in our advanced model, we're given the option to let the customer set their own size. Now I'm just going to go to like 100 centimeters, and what you can see is it's now 0 when we've gone past, I think it was 75. So let's go back down to after 50, sorry. So let's go under 50, and let's go above 50. And there, as you can see, why did that occur? Well, that's because in the pricing rules, we set on 50 centimeters, we set the start price to be 100. But then on the next size range, for that pricing rule, sorry, I should say, in the two size ranges, for the next size range, we had a start price at 0. So what occurs there is so as you can see here, the values that you define in a size range apply those inputs. So those pricing inputs will apply to that size range and that size range only. So let's go back. Let's go to pricing, and let's go back to our demo pricing. Okay. So you can see here, yeah, my start price was $100 and my start price here was 0. Now, let's go and make this $200. Again, just to clearly illustrate. And we go TTT, whatever, we can do whatever. We start at $100, that's great. Now let's go past 50 centimeters in width. There we go, boom. And we go to 200. So that works exactly as intended. Now, what you can also do, and to clearly illustrate, is it doesn't work just on the width, right? So I'm going to just create a scenario where the width and the height are almost the same, just to clearly show you. Actually, what I can do is I will create a scenario where the height is greater than the width. So here you can see the height is 61 centimeters, but the width is only 19. What you're still going to get is $200 because the height is over 50 centimeters in this case. So that's kind of like how size ranges allow you to set your pricing formula, your pricing inputs. I hope I've clearly kind of explained how that works. All right. So that's size ranges. Now, let's talk about, in this case, we've got the start price sorted out. Now let's go price per letter. So I'm going to set the start price just the same on both size ranges. And on the price per letter, I'm going to change it. So we can start price per letter at $5 for the first size range, and for the second one, let's make it $10. So in this scenario, all we're changing here is the price per letter. Let's save that. Let's preview it. Okay, so let's start entering. So we had $100 for the start price plus $5 per letter. So there you see is the final price of $105. Now, if I was to increase that sign size to over 50 centimeters, you're going to now see $110. That's because the letter price has gone from $5 to $10. And that is basically letter pricing in a nutshell. Pretty simple to work with in that sense. In this part, we're going to learn about the shipping price. So, shipping pricing is a dynamic formula kind of, and it works on the final sign dimensions. So, in order to, we've created a few things here in order to streamline this process and make it as easy as possible to set up a shipping price for each size range and make it easy to understand and modify. So the first thing is that to understand is the final price here is going to be the a per squared centimeter value. Now, what that means is like a 1x1, 2x2, or 2x1 kind of scenario, right? What, like, you know, in centimeters, and then this value that we define here will be multiplying that final dimension to give you the squared value. That's the math behind it. But anyway, in order to easily understand, we've got this little calculator here that allows you to input your shipping costs for a given dimensional range. Now, how do you actually find your shipping costs, right? Is like the number one question that we would have. In order to do so, just click on the in this shipping price information button here, and you'll be brought up with kind of just a brief overview, kind of like how to use a calculator, blah, blah, blah. But then at the same time, over here, when you go to find your shipping costs, just viewing this article, what we've got here is a shipping cost matrix, or how to acquire. I'll bring up this article in full view. That's the same article. And what we've got is a step-by-step instructions on basically how to actually get your shipping dimensions, or get your shipping cost matrix. We only need to know the height and width and get a value. Like, you know, e.g. like $80 for shipping 50 by 50 parcels, right? You know, is the kind of, because the way that you would, like, you know, create your signs and then package them up into a shipping, into a parcel, is going to be relatively the same for a given size dimension of the sign. So we can kind of, like, you know, get a really good estimate just by knowing the height and width. So let's just say that, you know, you've gone and spoken to your supplier, they've come back and, you know, for a 50 by 50, they've said the cost is, let's say, $80. Okay, so how do you actually work with that so your first range, you know, your 50 by 50, your shipping price, you want to do as $80. So if I was to put that right here, you're going to get something really crazy, like that's $200,000. That's not right, is it? So let's go here to the easily convert the shipping price. And this is where you can actually put in that value given by your supplier or the freight company. So we go to, like, we put in $80. It then converts it to a shipping price of I'm giving a squared centimeter value. Just apply it, and you can see in this input here, which is actually disabled because it's just for demonstration purposes, it's saying, hey, for $80 for a 55-50 parcel size, it's going to cost $80. You can adjust this value now, and you can kind of see the ending result of what occurs from a max size in that range. So we'll bring it back. And that is how you would do that. Now, let's talk about, and again, I can demonstrate this by, and you can work this out if you don't want to test it out. Let's go and let's just remove everything. So we've got one price range and the shipping price was this value, and it was, so let's just go save. Let's go preview. Let's go and go test. It's important that we work with a font that allows you to, when doing like something like this, allows the height and the width to be almost very similar. It just makes things a lot easier. Otherwise, like, certain other fonts can have very different outcomes when it comes to that kind of thing. And it's just literally the way they're built. So yeah, it's just easier to work with, like, say, fonts that are equally high as wide in that regard, or allow for a consistent outcome in that scenario. Anyway, let's go to the custom. So at, you said 50, it's $80. So just over, because, that we can't go exactly to 50 by 50 in this, but we're like, close, and like you can see that the price is pretty much $8, right? So, that kind of shows you just how kind of that works, right? But the customer can keep going. We're still using that value, this value here. Let's go back out. We're still using this value here, and that's because we only have one size range. This is what I'm saying about continue to infinity, how this like continue to infinity, because it just keeps going, even though the max. So if I add an additional size range again, and I go 50, and even if I do this one at 75, the size range, I bring it down, and so everything else is 0, 0, 0, 0. Sorry, we'll make the same. We'll do the same value. So oh yeah. Another thing I'd like to talk about is, so now we've got this size range here, right? So this is the final size range, or the last range that you're setting up in this formula. So in this scenario, we're starting at 50 centimeters, continuing to infinity. What's going on here is I've entered in the same shipping price as before. It's showing here of 75 because the max size range is 75 here, even though it does continue to infinity. And it's giving us a value at $180 for 75. So in your scenario, your shipping cost will probably most likely be very different. Depends what you're shipping to, depends on the time of the year, all that kind of stuff, right? The shipping prices change all the time. So, you probably want to, this is where you use your shipping matrix. And then you go like 75 by, what is the value there? 75 by 75. You would then say, let's say instead of $80, it's $90, or maybe make it $100. Okay, that gives us that new value based on those dimensions. Now, I'll just say that again. So at 75 by 75, we should have $100 shown on the Sign Customiser. So I'll just go to task. Bring that up to 75 by 75, or as close to as possible. Cool. So 99.96, right? That is pretty much on point. Now we continue to use that value, that price value, or price per square centimeter value, continuing on. So that's kind of how to infinity kind of works in that scenario. In this part of the video, we're going to now learn about letter material costs and how that's used in this advanced pricing model. So we've learned all about the fixed cost per letter. Now let's switch to the letter material cost. So when you assign or select the letter material cost, what you're going to see is this value here on each price range will change to the letter material cost. So I've just selected back. You can see the price per letter here. Letter material cost is now the letter material cost. Alrighty. So the way that letter material cost is used is, and I'll explain a bit more in detail about that later, but we take the length of the material required to build the shape of the letters, and we measure that, and then we can assign a value here in this input to basically price that measurement. So let's just say something costed, the shape of the letters equaled 100 centimeters in length for the actual particular, the letters of that sign. So what would happen is if we have a value here of 1, what's going to occur is the price is going to be $100. So what we can do here now, I'm just going to set up a demo here. I'm just going to price everything at 0. What's going to happen as well is every font is different in terms of its shape. And so you're always going to have very different outcomes in terms of the overall price. And that also depends on the size. So this is a very flexible model. It allows you to basically set up. It's really good for people who are building their own signs and using materials that can be quite expensive to actually build the shape of the letters of the sign. I think that's when it's going to be best for companies setting up using this app. So let's just save this value and let's go and preview it just to give a bit more of an explanation. Now I'm going to switch to a font that has not a fixed height assigned, or not a fixed height font where everything's just uppercase, sorry. I should mention not a fixed height, but every letter in certain fonts can be all uppercase, certain fonts can be lowercase uppercase, depends on the font, right? So I'll switch to more of a normal font in that regard, and I'll just put the first character. So what you can see here is what's going to happen is each font with the same character, but it's going to have differences in terms of the overall price. So you can see here as I'm switching fonts, the price changes. And it's worth pointing out that just before I started this part of the video, I assigned all the fonts to use the demo pricing, that pricing rule. And but like you can see here, the price is different. Now, why is that the case? As mentioned before, we do that tracing, right? So how do we? What does that mean? So I'll try to illustrate it here. And what we do is we take we trace the shape of the letter. So let's just say this is a T. It's a simple shape, right? So we're taking that shape, and then what we're doing is we're tracing, we're stretching it. Well, we're stretching it out. I say we're stretching it out, but we're taking that shape and we're placing it into like a flat plane. We then basically measure that length, and then we use the value from the input that I showed before to basically create this price. Oh, sorry, I'll get rid of that to create this price here. So that's kind of and you know the shape of obviously the font, but also the size ends up determining that line that I just showed before, that line of that length of material required. So as you can imagine, different, like, you know, the shape here is quite more longer. Well, it would produce a greater length of material than, say, a shape like this. But also you should notice as well that the sizing changes. It needs to, not too different, but let's go here, you know, but so it's not just dependent on the obviously shape of font, but also the size too, because what happens is when you start switching sizing, is obviously the price is going to be increasing as well. So this is, as I was trying to say before, like this is quite a very scalable solution to setting up your pricing when it comes to your fonts, or yes, setting up for your letter pricing. It's a really cool and scalable solution. If you're using fonts that are like, you know, single line or double line, you don't if you're using this kind of pricing system, what happens is you don't really have to like set up a different pricing for a single line or a double line font, because again, what we're going to be doing is we're tracing all that, right? We're tracing all that, and so you're going to basically get an accurate pricing figure to the shape and size of your site. Now, I wouldn't recommend that this material length pricing system be used for more inexpensive materials such as flexible neon. It can be, it does work good for it, but there are other factors in play when it comes, like if the letter material cost is not high for example, flexible neon, then you probably want to be using a pricing strategy more around the shipping cost and the like a fixed letter price that might give you more of if you talk about accuracy and that kind of stuff, that might give you more of a easier playing field to work with. It works really well when the actual materials required to build the shape of the letters are expensive. Let's say, or they take a long time to make. So you have to have like a big, you've got a human cost factor there, or a machine cost factor in terms of time and resources in order to build the shape of those letters. Well, you would probably want to employ this material length pricing system because it's going to give you that most accurate figure. You're no longer locked in to a fixed cost per letter. The shape and size of the letters ultimately would dictate the price. So that is a good jump between the two. One other thing that I would like to mention is, and I'll switch to this font just for illustrating, is there's obviously going to be now a difference between when customers input, like say a uppercase letter over a lowercase letter. So let's just look at this, for example. Actually, I'll switch to this font because it's better to illustrate. So right now we've got lowercase t on the first letter. We'll switch it to an uppercase and it jumps from $221 to $331. So what's actually occurring is, first of all, the sizes change of the sign, but also you can see that the shape of the T, uppercase T, is quite a lot different. And what I can do here is I can just bring the lowercase, so $41 to $57 in terms of that difference. But also because we're using like a natural scale system, when you're adding more characters, that has more of a dramatic impact on that size scale. You get these kind of like, these big differences when between an uppercase and lowercase. So depending on how you want to position yourself in compared to your competition, the type of material that you're using, all those kind of things, these are kind of the considerations that you will have to make when you're using, say, a fixed letter system over a material length pricing system. Now, in this scenario, what's actually going to occur is you're going to get the accurate price here. You're going to, as a merchant, this is good from a profitability point of view, because if you're using a fixed price lettering system, well, when you're doing an uppercase T, and if you're building the signs accurately to the measurements that our app produces, which is accurate to 99% accurate to Adobe Illustrator and other vector-based programs, so it's a very accurate system. What's going to happen is, if you're using the material length model, is you're going to get an accurate outcome. But what happens when you're using a fixed price system, fixed letter price system, what I should say is it wouldn't matter if the customer types a lowercase or uppercase. What's going to happen is they're still going to have the same price, e.g. $10 per letter, right? So in that scenario, you would actually lose a bit of potential profit, or maybe even lose a bit of money on that particular letter, depending on the final outcome of the sign, obviously. Yeah, it's like, you eat a bit of cost there, is what I'm trying to say. So they're the kind of considerations to make. Hope I can clearly illustrate this awesome model that's really scalable and flexible. It does require a bit of understanding to work with, and it's not suitable for all types of letter-based signage. So it's definitely worth just like having a play with, using the fixed letter pricing system first maybe, then trying out this system to see if it will work with you, or if you've got expensive material or expensive build process, or a timely or expensive build process, then definitely making the consideration to using material length would probably be the best bet for you. In this video, we've now learnt all the different pricing inputs and the size input required to build a pricing formula for our advanced model on the Sign Customiser app. So now it's kind of like, how do we put this all together? What's kind of the best solution to use? So I'll kind of like run through a couple of examples or scenarios and try to provide a solution here. Or the kind of, like a recommended method that you probably want to start with. If you're just starting off using the advanced method, what I definitely recommend is using the fixed cost per letter pricing method, just because it is simpler to work with initially. It also works really good if you're working with suppliers or in a drop shipping arrangement as well. But if you've got your own factory and that kind of thing, it might actually be better to use the letter material cost because you're going to have much more control over the experience when building those signs and the outcome of like shipping and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the first thing to consider. Starting out, or drop shipping, fixed cost per letter. Manufacturing your own or got expensive materials when you're creating the letters of the sign, e.g. gold plating or top of metal, or the manufacturing process to build the letters of those signs are time consuming or complex and require specialties or whatever, therefore costly. Letter material cost would be the better approach here. So if you are using the fixed cost per lettering system, what would occur is you're probably going to end up with a price formula that kind of looks like this, in a sense of you're going to have multiple size ranges. In my scenario, I broke it up every 25 centimeters, to make it much more controllable on each range of size. Now you'll be adjusting the shipping price and also the price per letter. So in this, one of the other questions I usually have when it comes to using the advanced model and the advanced pricing is, hey, what about my new lines? How do I control the pricing for that? Well, if you set up your shipping pricing, because it's based on the actual final dimensions of the sign, what you're going to do is you've accommodated for that, because it doesn't matter how wide the sign is, how high the sign is, your shipping price value will ultimately, cater for that, those size differences. So that's where, using the shipping price, input really is helpful here. And what I mean by that, just quickly, is, like when customers are typing in, a new line for here, if you've if you've created a shipping price value input, you're going to basically accommodate for that. So that's all good. Now, when it comes to start price and that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend using this example. I just haven't, but you'd probably want to lock in a particular price, because just to get started from a customer's point of view, to start this build process and all that kind of stuff, to build these custom signs, you probably want to lock in a bit of money just to get that all started. And yeah, in this kind of scenario, what I've done is I jumped the letter price. So again, on each size range, you would increase the letter price, and you'd probably decrease the shipping price over additional sizes, because shipping prices usually decrease over the sizing. So you'd probably using that kind of in terms of decreasing this particular input here, the actual overall shipping price would basically be higher. But as you can, using this input here, or viewing this input here, you get a clear picture of how much money is going to be, or the final price of this particular aspect for this site. Another question that I have from merchants is creating a more scalable, or how do I create a scalable pricing solution? When it comes to using an advanced model, you to do two things. If you're using the fixed cost per lettering pricing, well, you'd probably, as I said before, you'd create size ranges in small chunks, or small range blocks, e.g. every 25 centimeters, or it could be every 10 centimeters, right? And that means you just have to adjust the letter pricing to avoid the larger jumps in pricing between sizes. Again, using the letter pricing, using the letter material cost pricing method would allow you to create more of a scalable solution. You're going to, because it's all dependent on the size, so as the centimeter value changes, so does the price, and it works really well from a scalable solution. What you can start doing is, as the sign gets larger, so we've got here from 75 centimeters to infinity, we can add another one here, basically from 150, not 1,000, 150, you'd probably want to start reducing not only the shipping price, because that's quite a lot, but what you'd probably want to do is on the letter material cost, if you've got say $1, at the higher the greater the size, you might want to put a bit of a discount on the actual letter material cost, in order to avoid kind of a more larger increase, a much larger increase in price as the sign gets larger. So that's something to consider as well. And you might even be using start prices and stuff, and you could probably, if you're using your start prices, you might lower that a little bit on the greater the size range, to kind of factor that all in, so that you create a more of a scalable pricing scenario. Obviously, this is within reason of your business profits, and those considerations to competitors and all those kind of things. But yeah, there's a couple of helpful tips along the way on making the most of this advanced pricing system that we've got here. As always, you can always contact us via this helpful widget we have here that allows you to view the articles, but also to ask us any kind of question that you have about it, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible and help you out with questions that you have. Alrighty, and thank you and goodbye.